What is happening, baby? Welcome back to the Huddle Chat Sports Network's very own Fantasy Football Huddle, presented by Danklyfe brand, and yours truly, the host, as always, Dallas Clark. Today, we're discussing really what happened in Week 3, kind of digesting it a little bit, and getting into the stardoms and situms, talking about the matchups I love, the matchups I hate, and we're going through each and every game on the slate through Sunday and Monday's matchups, as well as this evening's Thursday night football matchup, and giving you my thoughts on the players that aren't the obvious starts. We're not talking about Patrick Mahomes or Saquon or Lamar Jackson, the obvious starts. We're going to bypass that to save you some time, really just answering the questions you may have. If you have any other questions that I don't cover here in this fantasy football episode, make sure you drop them below in the comments, because I love featuring y'all's comments, just like the comment from Pale Patriot that we forgot to post on last week's video. We talked about it, but I forgot to bring the comment up. This was in regards to Brandon Ayuk and whether we should be worried. If you guys didn't hear, I mentioned Brandon Ayuk in my buy low trade targets this week. I'm starting to be a little worried depending on my team position. If I'm 0-3, I'm a little worried that I don't have the time to wait around and see. However, you're looking at Brandon Ayuk, and there's a reason he's had struggles throughout the first couple of weeks. The first few weeks has been rust, and then last week without George Kittle or Deebo Samuel, he even doubled his target share last week, but it did not produce to any points for us. So how long do you wait and see? I'm buying low on him if I can. So if you have him, I'm thinking about holding on to Brandon Ayuk. But Pale Patriot, thank you so much for the comment. And anybody else, make sure you drop down below and let me know any questions you have, because I'll cover them on any future videos or live episodes like we do on Sundays, 9:30 Mountain Standard Time, 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, to cover all the last minute information that you may need for your fantasy lineup. But let's get all that out of the way. Like I said, we're talking about the stardoms and situms this week, so buckle in, fill up your cup, roll something up, and let's get right into Week 4's stardoms and situms, because Week 3 was very strange. It was one of the strangest weeks in recent memories. As I've said early this week, if I learned anything, it's that this is going to be a muddy ass fantasy football season. I don't think that I know much more about this fantasy football season now than I did in August before Week 1 starting. Scoring was down continuously, as it's been throughout the entirety of 2024. A bunch of underdogs blew out their opponents. There was a bunch of people that were almost guaranteed starts that had great matchups that were downright unusable, like I talked about with Brandon Ayuk just a moment ago. Tight ends continue to stink, and it's got everybody out there begging for everybody to remove the tight end position from fantasy football, and that's just a ridiculous ask, because even quarterbacks are continuing to struggle. Look at what Patrick Mahomes has done. Not really much. I bet you people that drafted him inside the first 3 rounds are feeling pretty stupid, but at the end of the day, everybody's got an issue. You're looking at Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Christian McCaffrey. Tons of those top 24 picks are looking really rough right now, so it's got to make the blow feel a little bit better for those people that jumped a little early on quarterbacks, that quarterbacks have struggled as well as everybody else this year. But let's start everything off with some matchups that I love. And before I get things started, make sure you smash that like button if you like the content, and hit that subscriptions bar as well as that notifications bell. My matchups that I love, we're going to start with C.J. Stroud this week against Jacksonville. You're looking at the C.J. Stroud and the Texans most likely being absolutely pissed off after their showing against Minnesota last week. You're looking at Jacksonville being 31st ranked against quarterbacks and against the pass, and they have a non-existent pass rush right now. They're allowing 252 passing yards a game and 28 points per game on the field. This is the get-right week for CJ Stroud and the Texans. He's yet to surpass 18.6 fantasy points this season, and this is the week CJ Stroud is going to surpass that number. I also love Najee Harris against the Indianapolis Colts, as much as you would be surprised to say that. His volume has been ridiculous so far throughout the 2024 season, and there has been not many opportunities thus far to score, but that could all change against this Indianapolis Colts, who's already allowed 2 running backs to go over 150 yards each this season. They've been absolutely terrible against the run. Things looked a little different last week against the Chicago Bears, but I think that was just a game script issue that the Colts have not been fortunate enough to have on their side this week, and who knows with how good that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is, if the Colts have the chance to really take Najee Harris out of the game script wise. So I like Najee Harris a lot this week. I also really like Chris Godwin. I like Mike Evans as well, but you're already going to be obviously starting him. I like Chris Godwin this week. We've shown already already that this offense can support 2 wide receivers, and it still can support 2 wide receivers. Plus, you've already known that this season I've loved to talk about this young Eagles secondary that continues to let points up and let wide receivers go crazy against them. I'm expecting big wide receiver numbers, and I'm expecting high-end wide receiver 2 numbers from Chris Godwin this week against Philadelphia. And last but not least, the tight end position, I love Dalton Kincaid against the Ravens. They have been absolutely susceptible to the tight end position this year. You're looking at Brock Bowers and Jake Ferguson going off against them in weeks 2 and 3 for 15 receptions and 193 yards combined between the two of them. I expect that trend to continue against Dalton Kincaid, who's not just a tight end, but a slot wide receiver in this offense, and I expect him to feature as a heavy role in this Buffalo Bills offense, as he has shown this season. So I'm liking Dalton Kincaid a lot. Before we move into the matchups that I hate, make sure you drop down below in the description to check out the Discord for more detailed analysis on each matchup, wide receiver versus cornerback matchups, as well as a community that you can speak to through our Discord. Drop below and get that link right now. Matchups that I hate, you guys know that's got to be coming. Anthony Richardson this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've already talked about it. You're looking at that Steelers defense being really good. You're looking at Anthony Richardson not scrambling as much, and even the designed runs have been down low, which makes Colts fans happy because they have Jonathan Taylor. They don't need to run Anthony Richardson as much. However, the passing questions that have been raised about Anthony Richardson since coming in the league are still yet to be answered. He's thrown very few passes, just about 10 passes complete in every game so far, and outside of one big pass to Alec Pierce in every single game, he's continued to struggle throughout the NFL season, and I do not think this is the week for Anthony Richardson to get right. Whether you call it punishment, whether you call it the wait and see approach, Anthony Richardson has to hit the bench this week. I'm also going to be I also do not like the matchup with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet against Detroit. The Lions' run defense is top tier, and there have been a lot of injuries to the offensive line of the Seattle Seahawks, so it may behoove them to try to get the ball out of Geno Smith's hands quick and get Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, more involved in this game. So at least temper your expectations with Zach Charbonnet, and I'm probably going to be sitting Kenneth Walker if he even plays this week. I also do not like the matchup for Garrett Wilson against Denver and against Pat Surtain. Pat Surtain is locked down, and the Denver Broncos defense has been number 1 against opposing wide receivers this year, large in part due to Pat Surtain shutting down some of the league's best wide receivers. Pat Surtain is being talked about in just about every fantasy football column because he's just so happened to be matched up against some pretty viable fantasy football scoring wide receivers so far this season. And you're looking at Garrett Wilson already being on a disappointing track, so if you can afford it, I'm not going to be taking Garrett Wilson to my lineup this week, and if I have to, I'm tempering expectations on him. And then last but not least, in the matchups that I hate, it's going to be Hunter Henry against the San Francisco defense. They're the number 1 defense against tight ends, coming off of a bad week last week. I do not think that the Hunter Henry, outside of some garbage time, and if Hunter Henry does not score, I'm not really liking Hunter Henry's chances to put up big numbers this week. Also, before we get started into all of the matchups this week, if you haven't yet, make sure you check the Huddle Chat Sports out over on Spotify. There's more easy and convenient ways to listen to the episodes if you don't have the time to watch it over here on the mothership. You can check it out while you're driving the car, pumping gas, mowing the lawn, whenever you're doing what you got to do. The Huddle Chat Sports Network has your back. Now, getting into the first game of the week, the Thursday night football matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Obviously, we're going to be starting Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. I'm also going to be starting Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary. Wan'Dale Robinson has earned flex appeal due to his high volume, especially in PPR leagues. He will get you some good points this week. I'm also going to be keeping my eye on Jalen Tolbert in deeper leagues. I think when you're looking at what Brandon Cooks has done, Jalen Tolbert has shown that he has a big role that's to be etched out in this offense, and he has taken some pretty good target share in these last couple of weeks and been able to turn it in some pretty decent production in fantasy football. So keep your eye on Jalen Tolbert, especially in those deeper leagues. And Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, might be back to your favorite form this week. I'm looking at Daniel Jones being more than usable. I might start Daniel Jones over somebody like Anthony Richardson if I can this week. You're looking at the New York Giants getting things going with Malik Neighbors, and their offense has looked not terrible as you've expected them to this year. And also, with this being a divisional matchup, the Cowboys having a 12-0 record against the New York Giants as of late, you're looking at Daniel Jones having a lot to beat this week, including the haters. So I like Daniel Jones a lot. Moving on to the next matchup, which would be New Orleans versus Atlanta on Sunday morning. We're going to be looking at Darnell Mooney. I'm not afraid of starting Darnell Mooney, especially if you had to pick him up off the waiver wires. In these last few weeks, you most likely need to use him. He's got big playability, and it gives him flex appeal this week. He, in fact, has more targets than Kyle Pitts. I'm keeping Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave all in my lineup, and if you need a good streaming quarterback, obviously Derek Carr is going to be a good option for you. I might not trust Kirk Cousins quite enough yet to put him in unless I'm really down bad or I'm in a multi-quarterback league and need another option for my number 2 quarterback. Then Kirk Cousins might be usable, but I'm staying away from him this week if I can afford it. Moving on to Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. I'm confident in the volume that Josh Jacobs has, and that's what's keeping him in the starting lineup. He hasn't been able to turn it into a ton of production, and I'm even starting to keep my eye on Emmanuel Wilson backing up Josh Jacobs. He's starting to etch himself out of role and earn some standalone value, so you're starting to be able to believe that you can trust Emmanuel Wilson if things go really desperately in your running back position. Speaking of pass catchers, I'm looking at things like Jaden Reed, and I'm more confident in Jaden Reed if Jordan Love plays, but I would wait on Jordan Love himself if he plays. I'm not confident enough coming off of that injury that he's not going to be doing much more than quick dump offs to the likes of Jaden Reed. I'm not starting Christian Watson, and at this point I'm starting to question what's going to happen when Jordan Love comes back for Christian Watson, because so far he's been a pretty big bust this season. That Minnesota defense has been tough, so I'm not really comfortable with many more people besides Jaden Reed and Josh Jacobs so far this week in that Green Bay Packers lineup. And then the Minnesota Vikings, you already know you're starting Aaron Jones. You already know Sam Darnold is one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy football, believe it or not. So I'm keeping him in starting lineups. And then obviously Jay Jettis has got to be plugged in. Moving on to Pittsburgh at Indianapolis. I would bench Anthony Richardson, as I said, if I can afford it. I would even start Justin Fields over Anthony Richardson, and that's a decision I'm making not lightly this week. You're looking at him, like I said, not running as much, which is taking away his value, and that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is not a joke this year, so I would definitely stay away from Anthony Richardson, and I'm staying clear of Indianapolis wide receivers at least this week until we get some more clarity on what the hell is going on with Anthony Richardson and that accuracy if he's not throwing a straight vertical down the field. I'm big on Najee Harris this week, especially with no Jaylen Warren being all banged up and everything like that, and with this Indianapolis Colts offense or defense allowing running backs to just run rampant on him so far this season, as I talked about in the opening of the episode. Moving on to the next one's going to be Philadelphia Eagles at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm seeing a ton of action going to Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley this week. I'm even liking Jalen Hurts more this week. Shouts out to you Jalen Hurts owners that have kept true and trusted the process. I think he gets a lot more rushing, which is really what gives him his upside this week. I'm also going to keep going with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Rachaad White, you got to do something this week for me. I'm not feeling comfortable. If I can afford to bench Rachaad White, I definitely will. I'm even thinking about taking Rachaad White with somebody like DeAndre Swift, some players that have some untapped upside that they have not hit yet, with ceilings that you know that are pretty decently high if things go their way, and trying to package them together to see if I might be able to get a solid flex option, especially if I'm 0-3, as we talked about in that buy low sell high trade episode we did recently. Blasting through these next couple of games because we kind of know what's going on, and a lot of them either aren't fantasy relevant or we really know what's going to happen. There's a lot of people that we're not really on the fringe with. Houston at Jacksonville. I'm all in on CJ Stroud this week, as I told you guys. Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins should have big games. Cam Akers has flex appeal. Jacksonville's defense is absolutely terrible, so expect the Texans to eat this week. I'm also thinking Travis Etienne might definitely have a pretty up week this week, showing how that Texans defense has shown against the run so far. So that being said, I'm like I said, I'm all in on the Texans offense outside of Tank Dell. I think you're looking at too many mouths to feed in this offense, and this might be Tank Dell's last opportunity to be rostered on your team this week. Moving to Cincinnati, Carolina. Obviously, we know we're starting Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki, all earned that starting opportunity, and Andy Dalton has made this offense usable. With no Adam Thielen, I'm liking Deontay Johnson. Might even be picking Xavier Legette up off of waivers because he's going to be getting a lot more use, and they're going to be asking a lot more out of Xavier Legette now that Adam Thielen is on IR. You're also looking at Chuba Hubbard having some decent opportunity this week. So this game is going to have a lot of questions on the Carolina Panthers side of the ball as far as can they keep it going like they did last week, or was it a fluke? We will know that on Sunday, but I'm feeling comfortable with just about everybody in that matchup that's important to your fantasy roster. As far as Broncos Jets, like I told you guys, I'm not really feeling comfortable on New York Jets pass catchers. Alan Lazard might earn flex appeal, but if I'm thinking about sitting Garrett Wilson, I'm probably not going to be starting Alan Lazard in my flex option this week. Denver Broncos, if you need to start them, you can, but I'm staying away from them if I can afford it. Los Angeles Rams versus Chicago Bears. We're looking at Caleb Williams potentially having his biggest game thus far against this Los Angeles Rams secondary, who has been suspect so far this week. I think Rome Odunze has done enough to earn flex appeal, especially with the banged up wide receivers that are around him, and him and Caleb Williams showing a really good connection thus far. Cole Kmet and Colby Parkinson also earned starting opportunities at the tight end position as well. Now we got to move into those afternoon games. That's going to be all of those early games and the Thursday night football game. We have a few afternoon games, the Sunday night football and the Monday night football to blast through. And before I get to the rest of it, make sure you hit that like button if you like the content, and hit that subscriptions bar as well as that notifications bell so you always know when new content is coming your way. Now, moving to the first game that everybody's probably the most excited about this week as far as the Sunday regular games that aren't prime time, it's going to be Washington Commanders versus the Arizona Cardinals. And who would have thought that'd be one of the most interesting games on the schedule when you came into the league, came into the season in August. It's been established to start quarterbacks and wide receivers against the Washington Commanders secondary, so I'm not going to go too far in on that. On the Arizona Cardinals, we know MHJ should go crazy. Kyler Murray should have a good game. So I'm not really going to spend too much time on that. Jaden Daniels might have just secured himself a spot as a must-start quarterback. And if you have him sitting on your bench, you either need to trade him off your team and get some good value out of him, or consider really putting him in your lineup, because you're looking at the ability that he's shown. And we all saw like the touchdown pass he threw to Scary Terry last week. You're showing some really good signs from Jaden Daniels. And I will look you right in your eyes right now and admit I was wrong on Jaden Daniels coming into the season. I was really low on Jaden Daniels coming in, and he's proved me wrong. And I will be the first person to tell you I was wrong and give Jaden Daniels his flowers. But you need to start him at this point. I'm also all in on Brian Robinson Jr. There's no Austin Eckler, and Austin Eckler has been scary to Brian Robinson Jr. owners because he looks so damn good when he's touching the ball. I'm still starting Scary Terry. If I have him in my bench, he's definitely earning at least wide receiver 2 or high-end wide receiver 3 production in this offense. New England, San Francisco, Ramondre Stevenson, flex appeal, low-end RB2 production from him this week. Outside of that, not really starting anybody. I'm sitting Hunter Henry. And then you guys know the deal with the San Francisco 49ers. We're plugging Brandon Ayuk in our lineup. We're plugging Jordan Mason. Brock Purdy might be serviceable if you need somebody, but with all of his weapons missing, you might consider looking at another quarterback, because it's glaring how mediocre Brock Purdy is without a all-star team around him. Kansas City, Los Angeles Chargers, we know the deal here. Nobody really on the Kansas City Chiefs side of the ball is really going to be getting sat in this game. Still keep Carson Steele as a flex options for you this week. The Los Angeles Chargers, J.K. Dobbin obviously will be a good flex option for you this week. Quentin Johnston will be a good flex option for you this week. I've been talking about him for the last couple of weeks. We kind of know the deal with this game. There's not really many questions that really seem to be taking too much of our mental capacity in this matchup. Same thing with the Cleveland Browns, Las Vegas Raiders. I'm starting Jerome Ford. I'm benching Deontay Foreman. Devontae Adams, he's got to be started. Zamir White, you're gonna have to do something. I'm considering Zamir White. Just same thing that we were talking about earlier. If I can package him together with a DeAndre Swift, if I could package him together with a running back that has yet to hit his potential, that you just don't have the time to wait around and see anymore. Target somebody that has a low amount of running backs in their roster. Somebody that lost Christian McCaffrey early in the season. Somebody that needs running back depth that you can really be able to sell these two potential RB2 candidates for somebody like a Ramondre Stevenson, and add them to your roster to give yourself a little bit more comfortability and give them a little more bench space as well. That's going to be it for the afternoon games. We have just a couple more games to go through. Thank you for sticking with me. Make sure you drop in the comments and let me know if you have any specific questions on your lineup this week. Sunday Night Football is going to feature that Buffalo Bills versus the Baltimore Ravens. I'm plugging Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews into my starting column one last time. This is one last ditch effort for both of them. You're looking at Buffalo allowing Brenton Strange and Jonnu Smith to have big games against them. And like I told you guys early in the episode, Dalton Kincaid should have a big game on the opposite side of the field this week as well. But this is definitely should be a get-right game for both Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. And if things don't go right for them, we're really going to have to answer some questions next week here. So make sure you stay tuned for that if it happens. I'm also looking at Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman earning flex appeal as well. But other than that, you guys know what's going on. Start Josh Jacobs, start James Cook. Everything else is looking normal. Start Derrick Henry, start Lamar. Nothing crazy here. Monday Night Football, Tennessee versus Miami. Ugh. I mean, at what point did this look like a good matchup? But now you're looking at Skylar Thompson versus Will Levis. May your quarterbacks be flexible, hopefully, I guess, in that game. You still have to play Tyreek Hill, but I'm staying away from everybody else that's not Devon A-Chain. Maybe Raheem Mostert starts to earn consideration, but I think I want to wait one more week if he plays to see what he's going to look like health-wise. But this is really not a sexy fantasy football game at all. But on the other side of the coin, you're looking at that Seattle Seahawks-Detroit Lions game, and that's going to be the exact opposite. You're looking at me being all in on just about every single person. Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. You're looking at even Jared Goff being at home. If you need a streaming quarterback, might be able to give you some good points this week. I'm also looking at I'm even looking at Tyler Lockett being a potential flex appeal candidate this week because like I said in the opening, there's going to be a lot of injuries on that Seattle Seahawks offensive line. So you're going to be looking at Detroit really being able to attack Geno Smith very fast. So I think he's going to be doing a lot of dump offs to people like Tyler Lockett, Zach Charbonnet coming out the backfield, even Noah Fant, with how muddy the tight end position has been, might have his breakout game of 2024. I think it's definitely going to be a shootout when you look at how many points both of these teams have put up throughout the first 3 weeks. So you're definitely not going to be disappointed. Plus, it's always nice having somebody playing on Monday Night Football because it makes you feel like you have a chance when you go to bed on Sunday if your team is down or down bad. That's going to be it for today's for today's Stardom Situm episode. Thank you for staying locked in with me today, everybody. I'm loving all the love and support that we've been getting over on social media and through our subscriber count here. So please make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscriptions bar if you haven't yet. And make sure you tell a friend about the Huddle Chat Sports Network because we cannot grow as a product without your help. And I do this for y'all. So make sure you keep your chin up and your attitude down. I'm going to see y'all next time. Peace out.
Bye.